Yes, Ms. Connell.
Hello, my name is Kate, and thank you for mentioning that we're having really bad rain today. The Midwest and a lot of the United States has been affected by flooding and just really horrible climate sort of emergencies. What kind of plans or thoughts do you have about the ways that climate change really threatens farmers and rural America specifically?
I've learned from listening to farmers here in Iowa that we are seeing, I think, the wettest 12-month period in recent history, or maybe in history in Iowa. Those here will know the answer to that question. We've seen the windows close on farmers whose fields are too wet to be able to plant. We're seeing the ability to pass that farm on to the next generation, to your daughter or to your son, compromised, because you're seeing historic low farm incomes, farmers who are underwater in debt, and now farmers whose entire fields are lakes. We saw that in the southwest part of the state outside of Pacific Junction, soybean farm. And I remember passing the bins that had burst because the stored soybeans had soaked up all of the water and burst the sides of the bin, and just the smell was overpowering. And that was a smell in some ways of defeat. I just imagined all of the hours of labor that went into planting and to working those fields, and all of that is now lost because of the flooding, but also lost because that grain was stored, because it wasn't in China, because that market was closed down to those farmers, because we started a trade war and tariffs that ensured that they weren't going to be able to make the profit necessary to keep that farm going. So of all of those issues, the most existential for those farmers, for our country, and for this planet is climate change. The Missouri spilling its banks, the highest level of runoff in the history of that river. We know that that's not an anomaly. We know that the warming of this planet caused by you and me, our emissions, and then our inaction collectively in the face of the facts, that has caused those storms and that runoff and that flooding, the fires in California, the droughts in other parts of the world. How do we combat this? We free ourselves from a dependence on fossil fuels. We fully embrace renewable energy technology. We invest in the next generation of wind and solar and battery storage technology that allows us to distribute that stored energy at will onto the grid. We put farmers in the driver's seat. We ensure that they can plant cover crops at a profit to pull more carbon out of the air and sequester more of it in the soil. Regenerative grazing and agriculture being pioneered right here in Iowa. Let's pay those farmers and ranchers for the environmental services that they are providing. And then let's make sure that communities like Pacific Junction, which are on the front lines of climate change, that we make an investment in them to make sure that they are safe when the next storm comes, because we know that they're going to continue to be hit by climate change going forward. If all of us do all that we can, then the United States can take a global leadership role in convening other countries to do their part, and then there's a chance that we keep this planet from warming another 2 degrees Celsius. Our plan calls for net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050 and getting halfway there by 2030, which is just a little more than 10 years from now. It is an historic investment on the part of everybody, but I know that we can do it. This is the challenge of this generation, and I'm confident that we are up to it. Thanks for asking the question.